Hello, Connections. Glad you're here. I want to start by sharing a story I recently heard. I'm going to have to embellish quite a bit, and I know I probably won't be able to live to the standard that Bob sets, but nevertheless, it will help guide our conversation this week. So, this story is about a businessman. He is a very well to do businessman, and he travels to the middle of nowhere, Texas. And while visiting Nowhere, Texas, he stops in a diner and he likes his hot sauce. And there on the table is a bottle of hot sauce that he hasn't recognized before. And this is the best hot sauce he has ever tasted. So he asks the waitress, "Where do I get a bottle of this hot sauce?" She explains that it's a local farmer who sells to some of the area restaurants and small grocery stores in town, and provides the wealthy businessman his address. Night is settling in as the wealthy businessman arrives at the farmer's home. It's a simple house arranged on maybe 100 acres of land. And the wealthy businessman recognizes that the family is gathered around back. The farmer sitting next to a warm fire in a fire pit not too far out into the yard. And then just behind him, his wife entertains their two children, reading stories and staring at the beautiful sky that, since they are in the middle of nowhere, is lit up with amazing spectacle. The wealthy businessman introduces himself and sits down with the farmer next to the fire pit. And he pitches him this idea. He says, "I would like to invest in your hot sauce. With just a modest investment, I can show you how to market your product. We'll build a simple factory and produce." "What do you produce currently?" The farmer said, "Well, I produce about 5,000 units a year. I sell to the local grocery stores. It helps pay the bills, and I get to enjoy my family." And the wealthy businessman, "Oh, well, 5,000 units a year, that's nothing. We can increase just by a simple factory. We can increase that to 5,000 units a month, perhaps even 10,000 units a month." And the farmer stares at the wealthy businessman and says, "Why?" But the businessman's not done. He's like, "Well, matter of fact, what we could do is introduce your product nationwide. Now, it will cause, you'll have to travel a bit because you'll be the face of this product. But with a little bit of investment of your time, I think we could sell even more." And the farmer looked at the wealthy businessman and said, "But why?" And the wealthy businessman was not going to be deterred. He's like, "Well, now, if you really want to talk something, we need to go global. We need to automate our factory. Now, that'll require quite a few investors beyond myself. I can introduce them to you. Of course, we'll need to travel worldwide to introduce this wonderful hot sauce to the world. We'll need to spend millions and millions of dollars to automate our factory and make sure that we could produce perhaps as many as 1,000,000 units a month." And the farmer once again looked at the wealthy businessman and said, "But why?" And the wealthy businessman paused and he said, "Well, don't you want everything that this life can give you? I could project a time when you can finally retire, perhaps purchase your own island. And imagine on that island, you would be able to tap into all the most amazing technology where you could run this reasonable house off of solar power and wind power. You could gather out behind that home every evening sipping on a cocktail under a beautiful sheltering sky, perhaps next to a fire with your family around you. Hopefully, I've led you to a better understanding of what we're going to be talking about this week. For this story is a representation of Ecclesiastes. It's a representation of we spend much time chasing after what the world tells us is success, only to find ourselves back where we began, which is life is not defined by how much stuff we accrue or how many experiences we have. Life is much simpler than that. And that's where we turn our attention today. That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. The author of Ecclesiastes boils it all down. Elsewhere, he will tell you that enjoy the relationship that God has blessed you with your bride. Enjoy the relationships around you. And whatever God has put your hands to work on, do it with joy. That's the jumping off point. And that's it sounds so simple. Doesn't it sound simple? It sounds so simple, then why am I stuck in idle? Well, that's the question we would like to explore this week. And we're going to begin with money. For money is the source of tremendous amount of greed and envy, and I don't have it, my neighbor has it, and I want it. And I won't be satisfied until I have everything that everyone else has. Now, the beauty of being a man of my age is that I have discovered there's a truth that no matter how many things you have, there's always someone else that has more. And all of those things cannot buy happiness. Now, folks that are just a little bit further up on the road than I am would tell you something even greater. That it's all about relationships, which is the exact same thing that the author of Ecclesiastes discovered. Relationships and time to enjoy those relationships with peace and joy surrounding you. It's not about stuff. But boy, does our culture and does this world emphasize that you got to have money or else you're nobody. Ecclesiastes 4:4. Then I observe that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors, but this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. In 5:10, those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. And finally, in Ecclesiastes 6:9, enjoy what you have rather than desiring what you don't have. Just dreaming about nice things is meaningless, like chasing the wind. If we could only take these simple lessons and apply them to our lives, perhaps we would not feel so pressured in our finances. And that's the question. Why do you feel so pressured in your finances? Well, we're going to look for the answer and hopefully help you release yourself from those stresses and strains that come from chasing financial security. You see, financial security is not found by your industry. Financial security is found through your relationship with God. We talk about tithes and offerings, and as soon as I talk about tithes and offerings, most of you turn the volume down. He's in my pocket. He's trying to take money from me and give it to someone else. I'm hanging on to my money because I need it. With that mindset, you will not prosper. Now, even that word, prosper, triggers accumulation of worldly wealth. That's not the prosper that God is. If you want to enjoy your life abundantly, you must allow God to release you from that mindset. Money does not equal happiness. How do you break yourself free? You recognize that it is not your money. You see, God created this world, and everything in it belongs to Him. We are only here for the most insignificant amount of time in His creation, and by His grace and His mercy, He calls us to be caretakers, stewards of His belongings. If we prove ourselves faithful and good stewards, He may provide us more, but He's not providing us more so that we could build kingdoms here on earth. He's providing us more so that we could be the conduit of blessing to others. With that mindset, you will find an abundance. You will prosper in the ways of God. You will have an abundance of peace and joy and thanksgiving. You will get to participate in the things of God and draw closer to Him through that participation. But as long as you continue to hoard and put money as your God, the more danger you're in of never finding purpose and never finding God's plan. Let's start in Malachi 3:8. Should people cheat God? Yet you have cheated me. But you ask, what do you mean? When did we ever cheat you? You have cheated me of the tithes and offerings due to me. You are under a curse, for your whole nation has been cheating me. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse so that there will be enough food in my temple. If you do, says the Lord of heaven's armies, I will open the windows of heaven for you. I will pour out a blessing so great you won't have enough room to take it in. Try it. Put me to the test. Tomorrow we'll talk about this relationship that Malachi shares with, we believe, Solomon. We believe that Solomon is the author of Ecclesiastes. We'll also talk about some of the other relationships, even in the New Testament. Where does wisdom come from? That'll be the question we talk about tomorrow. Right now, we are looking at Malachi, which happens to be the last of the prophets. And what is happening, unfortunately, to the Israelites once again, or to Judah at this point, is the world is starting to work its way back in. And they're like, we don't have enough money, and we'll never have enough money, and we can't afford to give any of it away, even to God. And so their growth is stunted, and that remnant that God has promised will make it through to us just shrinks that much more. Let's turn our attention to 2 Corinthians 9:6 before we leave today, because if you think all of this wisdom and all of this illustration comes from Old Testament, well, think again. The same struggle that the Israelites faced, we face in the early church, and you and I are battling with today. 2 Corinthians 9, remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. You must each decide in your hearts how much to give, and don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure. For God loves a person who gives cheerfully, and God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. It's so simple. You see, we get so bound up in our thinking on money that even when we try to be good servants and try to tithe out of the right heart or give an offering, we're so bound up that we're doing it under pressure. We're doing it under this idea of I'll give some and get some, or I'm obligated to give. You've already been defeated if you feel obligated to tithe to God. It's not an obligation. It's a love letter. It's a, Lord, you have done so much for me. Thank you so much. I am giving this portion in recognition of all you have provided for me. Lord, as you expand my ability to be a conduit of blessing to others, let my heart remain soft so that I never feel the need to accumulate greater and greater wealth. My success, my peace, my joy is found in you. It's a free heart. It's a cheerful heart. Remember, we saw just a few weeks ago about the Pharisees and the teachers of the law and how they were giving down to their last herbs and spices. Just 10%. But they were doing that out of obligation. They were not doing that out of a heart for God. And that's what Jesus was calling them out on. You want the abundance. You want God's provision. You want to be happy and enjoy the rest of your days. Give freely. Okay, I don't want to go on too long today, so we're going to land the plane here. Reminder, we're going to pick up the conversation of where does wisdom come from and how do I get some tomorrow. Till then, know that I love you and I miss you. Looking forward to being home with you very, very soon. Until then, please be good.